Hello and welcome back to another installment of Conquering My Collection. In this video we're looking at another disc from Eureka, the Masters of Cinema Collection, spine number 206, and it is the first film from director Elia Kazan, A Tree Grows in Brooklyn. So this one I got for Christmas last year, 2020, from Connie. I literally gave her a list of all the MOC discs I didn't already have and just said one of them is fine. So she picked this one and I watched it. And I absolutely fell in love with it. And I asked her later, like, why did you pick that one? She said she thought the cover was really interesting. She liked the colors and the composition. And I do love the cover, and I'm glad that it's a great movie. So this was released in 1945. So this was like, World War II era, and it's based on a book by, it says in the back here somewhere, Betty Smith. And this novel became a bestseller in the US, but was also like really popular with American soldiers who were overseas at the time in World War II. And so this is kind of a very quick adaptation. I think the book only came out a couple of years before the movie. And this has a great cast. And hopefully it has it on the back here. Yeah, so we have James Dunn, Lloyd Nolan, Peggy Ann Garner, Ted Donaldson, James Gleason, Ruth Nelson, John Alexander. There's like 5 main characters for me. Well, 4 main characters and 2 side characters who are fairly important. So Dorothy Maguire, who actually should have been listed. I think she should have been listed on the back, really. Oh, she was. I just missed it. Okay. Dorothy Maguire and Joan Blondell. So we have Dorothy Maguire playing, and it's about this family who live in Brooklyn in 1912. Dorothy Maguire plays Katie, who's the mother of the family. Joan Blondell plays Aunt Sissy, who is the sister of Katie. James Dunn plays Johnny, who's the father of the family. And then we have the 2 kids. Peggy Ann Garner plays Francie, who's like a 12-year-old girl. And then Ted Donaldson plays Neely, who is a young kid. He's probably about 9 years old, 10 years old. And then we also have Lloyd Nolan playing the officer McShane, who's a local police officer. So one thing I have to say is that I loved going into this completely blind and not really knowing what I was going to get from it, because sometimes it's just fun and exciting to get like a nice blind viewing experience. And I remember the first 10 minutes. I love how I'm saying I remember the first 10 minutes. I watched this last night, but I remember yesterday. I watched the first 10 minutes on my work break just to get a feel for the film. And it's this wonderful opening sequence where we have the credits over these kind of pencil sketches of Brooklyn. And then we open on, it looks like they shot it in New York. I'm not sure if they did or it was a really amazing model, but it looks like the Brooklyn Bridge or like a bridge in New York. And it pans down to the street and you just get this very authentic street vibe. And I just don't know if they could have pulled that off. That must be on a real street somewhere. It's too elaborate. And the rest of the film feels very on a set and fabricated, but I have to say that opening section felt so real and vivid. And you just have the kids, what's her name, Francie and Neely, just going out and kind of like picking up scraps and getting like pennies for them and like going to shops and stuff. And you see this family who really have absolutely nothing, and every penny literally counts. And it's about really the relationship between Francie and Johnny, the father, played by James Dunn. And James Dunn apparently was this guy who didn't really have a great career in terms of big success and big starring roles or anything like that. He was a B-movie actor, I think. And for this film, he won the Academy Award and for Best Supporting Actor, I believe. And he did not ride the wave of that success as an Academy Award-winning actor into a more successful career, apparently. So it was one of those things where, and I would hate to say this, I looked on his Wikipedia, there's a whole load of credits. I'm sure he was a great actor, did many great things, but in terms of that mainstream recognition, it seemed like a one-hit wonder for him, but man, what a one-hit to have. An incredible character. This is a guy who's deeply troubled, but is just so full of life and energy and excitement and passion. The passion that he exudes through this character, Johnny, is just so infectious and just wonderful to watch. And he plays this guy who is a singer, he's a waiter, he picks up jobs here and there, but he doesn't have a steady job. He isn't providing for his family as much as his wife is, and back then that certainly wasn't the way things were done in a socially acceptable fashion. People certainly had a different expectation of what a family should be and which member of the family should be providing the most, and you can tell that it kills him, that he's not providing for his family as much as he should be, and that's why he drinks. And I think in lesser hands, and I don't know how much correlates to the book. I looked up the book, and the book apparently takes place over like 5 different time periods. It's very different to the film in that sense. The film kind of distills it down to a 1 year period, and I think that in lesser hands, whether again this was the way it was done in the book or not, I think you would have introduced this character as a drunk, and then you would have peeled away the kind of the flaws, and then found that kind of gem of the person inside later on in the film, and gone, oh wow, he really is a nice guy underneath all of that trouble. But the film does the opposite. As soon as we see him, he's this wonderful, bouncy, kind of sing-songy father, and the first scene is him coming, or the first scene he's in, is when he comes home and his daughter, Francie, is sat on the windowsill, and he's like, he's waxing lyrical about this and about that, and you can just tell how much this girl loves her father and how much he loves his daughter. And it's really about, it's a love story between these two characters, really, but also about the burden that the mother feels in trying to be the counterbalance to his charisma, really. She is trying to be this stern, breadwinner, like she has to provide for the family, and she has to be hard and be tough for the sake of everyone, because he's not that kind of guy. He just isn't. He's a dreamer. His head's in the clouds. He's always about, things are going to turn around. They're just around the corner. And there's an incredible incredible scene where a sequence of events between these two characters where Katie and Johnny are talking, and he's like, this is going to turn around. Things are going to get really good for this family. And you can see her almost buying it. You can see her face lighting up and seeing that man that she used to love so intensely when they were younger, when they were first, together and having children. You can see her beginning to kind of see the years melt away. Like her face, like a brilliant performance by, is it Dorothy Maguire? Don't want to get that wrong. Dorothy Maguire. And in many ways, I'd say she almost gives the best performance of the film, because it's so much more subtle than the others, but you can see her kind of almost believing him that things are going to turn around, and then she kind of diffused, she puts a pin in the balloon that is this kind of hopeful conversation they're having, and she's like, it isn't going to work. Things aren't going to turn around. They never do. And he's crestfallen, and he goes, no, you're right. They're not going to turn around. And it's just this hope that gets crushed. And that it probably is the realistic way to look at it, but it's just kind of heartbreaking. And that's kind of what the film is. It's a very sad film, but there's a lot of hope in it as well at the same time through all of that struggle. And it really makes you appreciate things. And sure, there's many films out there where you see families and characters and people that are struggling with their lives, and you certainly feel a lot more privileged than you do on a day-to-day basis, the things that you take for granted. But this film, I don't know, just the family aspect of it just really made me think about my own life, and like, I really don't need to scrounge for stuff. I don't need to go out in the streets and find bits of rubbish and get money just to buy food. And but it doesn't lean too much into that, where it's kind of like a pity party for the family at the same time, and it shows you them appreciating the smaller thing. And that's another thing that I think is a really interesting takeaway. The scenes around Christmas, take that away from the movie. That's like one of my favorite Christmas movies. I think it's just the sequence where the two kids, they get a Christmas tree for the family. They stay up until midnight outside in the snow in New York, in Brooklyn. And there's a guy there who's selling Christmas trees. It's a great sequence where they're talking between themselves, and he's talking to them, and you get the gist of what's going on. At midnight, he's going to give the trees away, but he's not going to just give them to people, because then people just turn up and wait till midnight. What he does is he throws the Christmas trees at people, at passers-by, and if they can catch it without the tree hitting the ground, they can take it home. So the kids are there, they're like, we're going to catch it. And they go, oh, come on, you're just kids. And they're like, give us that tree. So they get the tree and they turn out. The parents are worried sick. The kids have been out past midnight. But the kids turn up in the snow with this Christmas tree, and they go up all the flights of stairs in the apartment block that they live in, and everyone's opened the doors and wishing happy Christmas. And it just makes the whole Christmas experience. It's just this tree. It's just the tree. And it's wonderful. They're singing Silent Night as they're running up the stairs, and the father brings the tree up, and it's just so heartwarming. It really is so nice. And again, the presents they've got each other, they're just nothing. There's nothing elaborate there. It's the gesture. It's, here's something from me to you. It isn't much, but it's something I've made or have bought for you when we really have nothing to really... We don't have materials to kind of make things. I think the boy makes the father's presents out of his shoelaces, and the money that they scrounge together to get presents is, you know, that's money they shouldn't even be spending. But it's one of those films that makes you appreciate things. It's definitely a melodrama, and I think maybe leans into that a little bit too much, perhaps for some people. But for my sensibilities, I really connect to these kinds of stories, and I welled up. Tears, you know, filled my eyes many times throughout this film, even in moments where, literally, it was just a scene, I think, between the father and the daughter where they were just having a nice day together, and my eyes just welled up, and it was just so sweet and believable. There's even a moment where she's reading a book on the kind of fire escape outside the apartment they live in, and she just looks up and she's almost got tears in her eyes. She's just so into the story she's reading, and Francie is such a great character. I love the performance by Peggy Ann Garner, I believe. I want to get that right again because she also won an Oscar for this movie. And back then, what they used to do, yes, Peggy Ann Garner, what they used to do was they had a juvenile Oscar award. The word juvenile just to me conjures up like juvie. So it's just like, you know, it's almost like a bad thing, the juvenile Oscar award. But yeah, she won an Oscar for this, and yeah, she's really good. Like, I wouldn't say she was amazing, but she's so, well, no, maybe she is, because she really, it's not a showy performance. And at times, I actually wondered whether, this actress can't cry, because there are moments which are really sad, and you can see her kind of like almost trying to, but she doesn't. I thought, oh, maybe she just couldn't get there. But then later on in the film, there are scenes where she cries, and I'm like, holy shit, she can do it. What she was doing before was showing restraint, and that is so fitting for the character, because the whole family is trying to restrain themselves from really accepting the reality of the situation they're in, because they have to be tough, they have to be strong. Another criticism, I guess, is that one character gets pregnant in the film, and at one point they're kind of ill in bed, and I thought, oh no, is maybe it's going to be like an early miscarriage or something, and then they deliver the baby, and there's no bump. She's completely flat. There's no bump. There's no attempt to make it look like she's pregnant at all. So I had no concept of the fact that she was heavily pregnant and about to give birth. So I was just like, oh, that was surprising. Like, maybe they could have just put a pillow under there. I don't know. And the very final scene, or the penultimate scene, a little bit on the nose. I appreciate, if you've seen the film, I appreciate the sentiment of it, but I do think that too much was explained there at that penultimate scene. The very final scene is lovely. They're really touching, sweet moments. But yeah, James Dunn, what a performance. And there's another great scene where he sits down with his daughter and she's in bed and it's snowing outside. Some of the cinematography in the film is beautiful. There's just some really great visuals in this, and not in an overly showy way, but just like the way shadows will play on characters' faces, and that particular image of her in bed with the snow falling outside the window was fantastic. Beautiful visual. And then the father comes in, he sits down with her, and she's decided what she wants to do with her life, and that whole almost side story, or it's a big part of the story, but it's kind of, you know, it's not the main drive. Well, maybe it is actually. It actually plays a lot into the plot, is how she wants to go to a better school and how she's desperate to learn and to read everything. There's another great moment where she goes into a library and she picks out this book, and the librarian's like, "Do you really want to read this like anatomy book? Like, I don't think you're gonna understand it." And the girl's like, "Well, it's the next one in the alphabet." And the librarian's like, "Are you literally trying to work your way through the entire library alphabetically?" And she's like, "Yep. I want to know everything. I want to read everything," you know. And it was just such a spunky kind of like admirable thing. Like, it's just like, I wish I had that kind of vitality and passion for learning and life. But it's nice to see in other characters, and it's just like it's a good quirk to have, I think, and it's a positive quirk for, not that this is really a film for kids to watch, I don't think, or really to get much out of, but it's a positive influence, I think, to see some, even as me now. I almost feel inspired by it, you know, just to see someone who's so like enthusiastic about learning and about gaining knowledge, and she decides she wants to be a writer, and she's telling her dad this, and she's so excited about it, but he's just worried about the family troubles. And man, I'm just thinking about the scene, and it's not one of the scenes that made me tear up, but it really should have been, because his performance is so heartbreaking. Because I think he was like in his 40s when he made the film, and in some scenes he looks a lot younger, and in other scenes under certain lighting he looks a lot more his age. And in this particular scene, I don't know if they planned this, but she's all like, "Oh, I know what I want to do with my life and all of this," and she's so excited about it, and she can barely, you know, like get to sleep, and he's going along with it and being his usual kind of flowery self, and you know, I love the way that he talks in the film, and even the characters in the film are like, "Oh, just you know, just tell us that story the way that you tell things," you know. And you can just see this facade dropping as he's realizing and just dwelling on the things that are going wrong in the family, and his eyes, like the wrinkles around them, just seem to pop off his face, and just you just see the decades of weariness on his face as he realizes that I can't give this girl everything she needs, and boy, I wish I could. And just the look on his face was just I loved this film, absolutely loved it for that father-daughter relationship, which is probably one of my favorite father-daughter relationships in a film ever. I think I just completely bought that these two are crazy about each other, and it's almost like a kind of a comedic thing that the son is kind of not a big part of it, but the son doesn't care. Like, son doesn't care about going to school and learning. He's just like a little rascal who like just enjoys going out and just getting into, well, he didn't get into scraps. He seems like the kind of kid who get into scraps. And but you know, I loved the young boy. Like, he was just a really funny. He provided the comic relief when you really needed it in the film, I think. And again, Dorothy Maguire, really like steely but powerful performance, because she's really trying to hold everything together, and you see the woman that wants to come out of all of that but is forced to really be the stern head of the household because she has to do it for her kids. So there's a lot going on in this film, and I absolutely loved it. There's a really good 15-minute making of documentary that goes into a little bit about the behind the scenes of the film. I was really surprised to see an interview with the director, Elia Kazan, who actually lived into his 80s, and also an interview with the actor who played Neely, the young boy who's still alive. And so it was nice to see his kind of perspective on the film and some background information. So yeah, a really good little extra. And I think there's also like a featurette about the actress Dorothy Maguire, which I watched a little bit of, but I got a little bit tired. So yeah, the film looked really good as well. It's a 2K restoration from a 4K scan of the original film elements, and it also has like a half-an-hour radio broadcast from 1946. So yeah. Or is it? Yeah, no. Okay, it says it's an original radio broadcast version of the film, with some of the actors returning. I thought it was just like a radio broadcast that mentions the film, like publicity-wise. Because I did see like a description on the menu. I don't know. There's also a commentary with Elia Kazan, the actor who plays Neely, Ted Donaldson, and so I'm not sure if that's kind of a moderated thing or whether they just took a lot of interviews. I'm not sure. But obviously that was done maybe about 20 years ago now. I think 2003, 2004 was when the documentary was made. But anyway, A Tree Grows in Brooklyn. I loved the film. I really, really did. This is definitely one that's shot straight into my all-time favorite list, I think. So there we go. Not much more to say. Thank you for watching. If you've seen the film, let me know what you thought about it, and we'll chat down below. Otherwise, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.
It's alright by me. Apart from the fact he throws cans and calling into a tree. Yeah, he's really cool. Yeah, he's really cool. But he's not quite as cool as you.